Welcome to the first ever episode of the CWL Fancast. I am Jacob. I am joined by Sophie and Marcus. How are you guys doing today?
What
I'm good.
up?
Oh, okay. I'm good, yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I'm doing
this
all
is our
right.
first time here in the studio, so there are, a couple hiccups are to be expected, and we're all very excited to talk about the shows.
Yes.
So a little talking over one another is obviously, I would say, maybe not encouraged, but definitely understandable. I mean, we've got so much awesome CWL action to talk about.
I mean, as well as such a big week to start out on, we had the Super Show, like I think it was a week, not even a week ago now. And then we have global warming happening in, I think, just 2 days, couple days from when we're recording this.
I am
So,
very excited.
yeah, it's on my birthday.
It's on your birthday. That's so
Yeah,
awesome. Well,
yeah.
make sure everyone to wish a happy birthday to Sophie. And now we are just a couple of CWL fans who are excited to talk about one of their favorite wrestling promotions. I mean, we don't, unfortunately, I don't have any connection to the professional wrestling business. I don't think you guys do either, unless you guys have been hiding something from me. But we're just, we're just a bunch of pals who are here to. I mean, I think we've been bouncing around the idea of a podcast for it feels like a little over a year now, and now we're finally getting around to it. I mean, and what a great week to start with this excellent pay per view coming up. But on this episode, we're going to be talking about the Vindication Super Show that happened last weekend, and I know you guys were tuning in live for that, huh?
Oh,
Oh
yeah,
yes, absolutely.
absolutely.
I cannot. I was thinking even of maybe flying out to Honolulu to catch that live, but I couldn't. I couldn't get away from the house. So, but I was able to catch it live. On TV, obviously, and it was just. I mean, it was stacked from top to bottom. There's no question about it.
Absolutely. And it was stacked, but at the same time, like it wasn't overloaded with title matches at the same time. It just goes to show like that the Vindication roster is deep without having to have title matches every single Super Show. There was some title matches though, which we will be touching on later.
It is the
Absolutely.
A show, Mr. Ball.
Uh, and so let's start out by talking about the first match on the card. uh, Brubble versus Garnett Court, and I'm just gonna toss this over to you guys because obviously at the end of this, we saw Brubble and what Edward Bronson. It seemed like uniting, but I'm gonna let you guys kind of speculate on that.
Not sure if you want to go first, but I think one big thing is that there aren't a, I think there aren't a lot of necessarily giants in the CWL. Bubble and Edward Bronson are definitely on the bigger size of the scale when it comes to roster. And especially in the tag division, the current tag champs, one of them being Stark Shields, one of the few people that would, I think, maybe tower over Edward Bronson and Bubble. If we should see Anarchy Inc. retain, I think we could definitely see the two big men that have been dominating Vindication make a run for those belts in the very near future.
And see, that's what I would like to see because Brubble and Bronson are definitely my type of wrestling, especially as a tag team. I can't wait to see them start tagging because I get real Miracle Violence Connection vibes from the two of them. And as you know, All Japan's the best wrestling there was. So can't wait to see all that.
Okay, so just to go into the match itself, I mean, Brubble ended things reasonably quickly. He kind of tossed Garnet all over the ring, hit the Desert's heat, which is always a great move to see, and got the victory. And then Edward Bronson came out, and they had that moment of staring off. There was a bit of tension. We weren't sure if their rivalry was going to continue or what was going to happen. And then they shook hands, and they kind of celebrated on the ring posts. And so I'm a bit of a tag team purist. I love tag team wrestling. That's kind of my whole thing. And I gotta admit, I'm a little hesitant about seeing these two come together. They are two big, huge guys. I like the psychology and kind of the understanding of tag team wrestling. I like when a great tag team, sees what their opponent's doing, all right, and adapts to kind of adapt their own strategy, and they use their bond, their kind of shared mind. The greatest tag teams are ones that are of one mind. And I'm just worried that I'm not going to get that with Brebel and Edward Bronson because they're just so big. They're just so big. They're just so overwhelming. Like you could throw two guys. What's a great tag team right now? That's not on the bigger side.
Uh,
I mean, Church of Steel definitely would put that.
Took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, like Isaac and Max Sherman. All right, two fantastic wrestlers, no question about it. But I mean, you could throw both of them at Edward Bronson, and they would bounce off of him like a couple of ping pong balls on a brick wall. Like it's I don't know if I'm gonna get what I want out of those matches, but I'm very certain that if they go into that tag team division, they are gonna clean up.
well, one thing I'm sort of interested about is how they're going to work together because we've seen in the past, people go from rivals to friends and they've been able to make it work. But the rivalry these two had, I mean, it wasn't even, it might have been like what, a month, 2 months ago that Brubble threw Edward Bronson off the top of a tractor trailer. Like it was not necessarily like, oh, we're having this small competitive feud because we want to see who the best. They were trying to end each other's careers, and now they're sort of chumming it up. I've got to be honest, I don't know if this is something that might last,
Yeah, I could. Oh,
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Marcus. No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna say I could definitely see down the line that bad blood between them boiling over and causing issues. But I'm still very excited to see this as a tag team. I mean, this is definitely my style of tag team.
I mean, yeah, we all have our things that we prefer. Marcus likes the big guys. I like the tag teams. So, Sophie, what's your favorite kind of aspect of professional wrestling?
Any type of wrestling that would be considered dangerous. I like seeing people get dropped on their neck. I like death matches. I like strong style. Just if it looks brutal, I'm here for it. And to their credit, Edward Bronson and Rubble are definitely two brutal competitors. So they definitely tick those boxes.
All right. Well, with all that being said, let's move on to the next match on the card. And by the way, let me just say, that was a very good match between these two, and I very much enjoyed it. Next, we've got Ebac versus Zyro Toa. And so, Zyro, one of my favorites, unfortunately did not pick up the win here. Ebac was able to nail that beautiful NVIDIA driver and put Zyro away for the 1-2-3. But then, of course, the real talking point is what happened after the match. Do you guys have any specific comments about what happened during the match?
Well, one comment I just want to make is I think there was a certain list of people that going into season 4, people expected to really like pop off and rise above their station. And we'll talk about some of them later, and I'll touch on it later. But one of those people I feel like was Zyrotoa. I mean, people might struggle to remember, but he went into this season as a champion. He was one half of the tag team champions with Pistolero. And it seems like ever since, it seems almost like winning that title was a little bit of a curse. Because ever since he lost it and Pistolero became the singular tag champ, he's just been sort of tumbling and tumbling down, and he's not been able to stop this backwards momentum. And he definitely had a great showing up against Evac, but it's just sort of continuing to show is definitely not the season many expected from Zyrotoa.
I completely agree, and I mean, look, I just said it, but I'm gonna say it again. I love Zyrotoa. I mean, he might be my favorite wrestler on Vindication, and I know that's saying a lot, but he is just, I mean, he's so great.
He's definitely up there for me. I'm a big fan of Zyrotoa.
I mean, I think if you had polled most of the audience for CWL at the end of season 3, and you had to ask them, you know, do you see Zyratoa winning a singles title in the coming season? I think a majority of them would say yes.
Oh,
However, now
absolutely.
that we're sort of at the halfway point, I don't know if it's necessarily in the cards. I mean, we're nearing battle lines, and Zyratoa is on this losing streak. He's going to need to find a switch of some kind. He's going to need to change it to a certain gear if he wants to be as good as we all know he can be. Because people
Mhm.
want to see him succeed. I also want to see him succeed. But at the moment, there's so many other people that are on the come up that are simply just doing better than Zyratoa right now. And I'll talk about a couple more of them later. But yeah,
And so, my fear for Zyro, or the thing that I want to see from Zyro is, I feel like in each of these matches where he's kind of come up short, he's just like a second or two away from nailing that victory if he can just hit that, like, Zyro Hour, that beautiful pop-up Samoan driver of his. No, Samoan drop, pardon me.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I
See,
think.
oh, I'm
Please
sorry. I was
continue.
just going
No,
to ask
please
that.
continue.
That's what I always look for when I watch Zyro's matches. Is every match is always competitive. I mean, the man always brings it, but it's always that one little thing. Like you said, he has a hard time hitting that Zyro hour, and I feel like once he gets that down, it's the sky's the limit.
Yeah, like he's shown he has the skill to hang. It's just he's not hanging. We know he
Mhm.
can. He's just not.
Oh yeah, I mean,
And I
he
don't.
put on a great match with Ebac, put on great matches with Pistolero, put on a great match with Michael Young. I mean, the guy has the talent, and he's gone against three of the top guys in Vindication. He
Yeah,
just always comes up short, and I think after Battle Lines is when we'll probably see him start skyrocketing a little bit more.
I mean, of course, I don't want to delve too far into the future, but there is always, of course, the battle for supremacy, which is a fantastic opportunity. And, a win like that can really come out of nowhere, especially if you're someone like Zyro, who has,
absolutely.
the building blocks of kind of being that top guy, but has had a hard time just making it really click this season. But just to jump off that for a second, I really want to discuss this attack on Ebac after the match. Who was this individual that kind of came out and flattened Ebac after that great victory? And here's the thing that I really want to discuss. He hit that, well, as it's known, by some people who perform with the Salida del Sol, a move that's frequently used by his tag team partner in GPU, of course, Dower Ranger. I don't think that this person was Dower Ranger, because I don't know if you could get like that outfit over Dower Ranger's armor. But whoever attacked Ebac definitely had a very specific message, either to send to him or to Dower Ranger, or perhaps to the both of them. And I'm very curious who you guys think it could be.
I mean, I don't want to jump to conclusions, and I don't want to create conspiracy here, but we are getting close to battle lines, and you know we've already seen on the Nemesis side Alexander start discussing stuff like the battle lines match and things like that. And well, I'm not saying it's Alexander. What I'm saying is that Emac, former world champ, multi-time Twitch champ, former tag champ, he's definitely a name that a young upstart could beat and make a name for themselves. And we've seen a lot of people come up from Vindication, a lot of people come up from Nemesis. And, one does have to wonder if we could be seeing someone trying to make a very big name for themselves this close to one of the biggest pay-per-views of the year.
Are you speculating that it could be maybe a new Genesis call up, or someone that we've already seen on Genesis in a different
I'm
role?
saying, well, what I'm saying is that maybe not just Vindication could be the cause of this. Someone from Nemesis trying to make a name for themselves, trying to secure their spot
Oh,
on at
you're
Battlegrounds.
suggesting that it could be a brand invasion.
It could be. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying like it's a bit more of a possibility than compared to if this was just before, Mary Mayhem or something like that.
All right, I
It's the
like that.
season to do so.
So I think that is definitely a possible motivation. I think the big things are either that, or someone trying to, make a name, maybe one half of a new tag team, uh, kind of who's trying to get in, make that happen. Uh, you know, could be even if they're occupied in something else. Could be a member of the Sons of Fenrir.
Absolutely. Or, we mentioned them earlier, the Church of Steel, another person, another team sort of on the come up who would definitely not be opposed to, doing tactics like that to get in someone's head.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the build kind of reminded me of Max Sherman, so who knows? Marcus, do you have anything else you'd like to say about it?
I'm not one to speculate on things, but I think it would be neat if it was Dower Ranger. However, I also think it would be neat if it was someone from the Order. And there's a member of the Order who's been gone for quite a while, Mr. Ricky Valentine.
And there's also
that is something right there.
That is big, but another thing to also think about, Ace Anderson, someone who has been not been seen in even longer. Another big name in the Order who could, I mean, again, we don't want to speculate too much about surprise returns, but going after another member of the Order, it's been a very long time. Last time he was seen was tagging with Ebac. I'm not sure.
I gotta say that I like the Ricky Valentine, but I think I love the Ace Anderson. Because especially when you look at the move that was performed, it definitely seems something that's a lot more in Ace Anderson's wheelhouse rather than something that's in Ricky Valentine's.
I can definitely agree with that. And Ace is one of those people that I could very much see him attacking Ebac like that. Ricky, I don't feel like he would, but I just like stirring the pot.
I agree. I would say let's bookmark this. Let's bookmark these ideas, and kind of come back at maybe when we learn a little bit more about this attacker, and we can see who turned out to be right. Or if we get maybe a hint, we can continue our speculation. Moving on to the next match, we have got Belle Florent getting the win over Valencia. Who the hell saw this coming, huh?
I mean, these two obviously have a lot of history, not even just the stuff that's been happening the past few weeks, but like if you look back towards the end of season 3 and the wars going on between the Hunt and Valencia and everything going along with that, it's definitely a lot. And I think Bell came in here with a vengeance. I think Bell, another person maybe similar to Zyro Toa, who at the start of the season, we were expecting to really come into their own and be a big singles competitor, and then just sort of didn't do that. So I think they sort of realized they had that chip on their shoulder and came out here with a big point to prove.
Would you say that being in the Banff tournament could be a causer for why she's having issues? Maybe she has some nagging injuries she may have gotten from that tournament.
I mean, that's true, but also Belfort was also in that tournament. Sure, she didn't wrestle as much as Valencia, but I mean, Valencia we've always seen as a high level competitor, no matter how much. And Banff or not, this was a big win for Bell.
It absolutely was.
Do we think that maybe, this victory will have championship implications? I mean, who is really the next, Rox obviously has kind of painted herself as a very difficult person. You don't really want to be going after Rox. That's not exactly an enviable situation, even if she does have that gold around her waist. But could, Big Bicep Bell, as some people have been calling her, be the one to take that victory?
Well, another thing, Rox, another member of FFF with Valencia, I could definitely see, if not Bell going after Rox, Rox going after Bell for, taking out a member of her group. But I definitely could see a case for Bell going for that Vindication Women's title. As, like you said, who is there currently on Rox's level? I mean, there's Marilyn Benson, who we'll talk about a little bit later. Like Taylor Jones, maybe, but I think Belle Florent definitely shot herself close to the close, if not to, the front of the line.
Very true, especially with someone of the caliber of Valencia. Any last comments before we move on to the next match?
Nope. I was gonna mention I'm a big fan of Belle Florent. Um, and I would like to see her go after Rox because that is such a contrast of styles that I can't imagine it not being a great match.
I agree. I mean, I think just the towering strength of Rox versus the very technical work of Belfort would make for a very interesting styles clash, and I would be very interested in seeing that. All right, moving on, we have got one of the biggest matches of the night, MD versus Jack Steele, a submission match for the YouTube Championship. MD coming out with the victory, retaining his championship. We saw a pretty exciting change for MD. He's no longer calling himself the best in the world. He is now the Prodigy. And he pulled out a new move that I believe I heard on commentary. It was called the Prodigy Lock. It looked like a bit of a Dragon Sleeper to me, or like a modified Dragon Sleeper perhaps. And that was able to score him the victory. Your thoughts?
Well, I think one thing you neglected to mention is just before the match, it looked like Church of Steel with Isaac was going to get involved again, which, we've seen them do before with Olivia Maestral. But then Jack Thunderheart came out and sort of shocked everyone when he sort of evened the odds for MD. And even more shocking was MD winning this match because, let's face it, Jack Steele a bit more of a submission, a bit more known for his submission technique than MD.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like, you got to think that if you're Jack Steele, you're coming into this match feeling pretty confident, especially with it being a submission match. I mean, he's got that steel trap locked and ready to go at any time. So, and you're going in with a guy who, to a lot of people, doesn't really seem like a submission guy. He really focuses a lot on, strikes and the occasional grapple. And then he goes and busts out that Dragon Sleeper. And, I mean, I guess Jack Steele was so unprepared for it, he had no choice but to submit.
Absolutely. And I'll pass off to Marcus here just because I want to hear his thoughts on everything. But a big thing also coming out of this match, the first is who's next for MD in the YouTube title, but also Jack Thunderheart. Not only is back recently calling out world champion Michael Young. And I mean, I would definitely be down to see that match, but I've got to wonder, with possible nagging injuries, is Jack Thunderheart, I mean, is he 100% after, having that, the attack from Church of Steel just only a couple weeks ago?
That is definitely something that I'd like to. Let's perhaps discuss that in the immediate aftermath of the next matchup that we have, which is, of course, Michael Young versus Chris Princess. But in the meantime, Marcus, what were your thoughts on this submission, this excellent submission match between MD and Jack Steele?
First and foremost, that was. I knew it was a match later on the card. Everyone's calling the match of the night, but I think that this is if that later match is 1A, this match is definitely 1B. Um, but I'm a sucker for submission matches, to be totally honest. But you hit on something that I think is a really good point. A lot of wrestlers will watch film on their opponents. They'll even wrestle them a lot, and they'll know kind of their game plan, how they're gonna strategize, what type of moves they're gonna use. And I think that's what really was in MD's favor was the fact that Jack Steele just didn't see that Dragon Sleeper coming. I mean, he's never used it before, and mad props to the guy because the Dragon Sleeper is a fucking cool move. But I don't think Jack Steele saw it coming. I think that's why MD walked away the champion.
Absolutely, and MD, of course, added another move to his repertoire. I believe he calls it the Skull Buster with an AH. And I don't know. I don't recall what it is exactly. Does anyone remember what the Skull Buster was?
I gotta be honest, I don't. There was a lot to take in this match. I don't remember the commentary mentioning the Skull Buster, but who knows?
Oh,
I
I
have a
see
hearing
here.
problem, so maybe I'm wrong.
It was a big spinning kick.
Oh, okay.
That was very impressive. That was very impressive to take a look at. And that, of course, will be great for softening someone up for a Dragon Sleeper. It was a kick right to the face.
Okay. Well,
Uh,
big win for MD, and now who knows what is next for the YouTube champ? I mean, he's had a decent little run with the title so far, and I thing is, I don't know who's going to take it off him. Not because necessarily he's been dominant as a champion, not to say he's been like sort of weak as a champ, but I don't know who's going to take it off him just because of how deep the talent pool is on Vindication. I mean, you've got the Church of Steel, you've got people in FFF, you've got Brubble and Edward Bronson, who I know we talked about as a tag team earlier, but both could realistically go for the YouTube title as a singles belt. You've got
abs-
Pistolero, who hasn't been seen in a bit. You've got E-Back. You've got the likes of William Black, Jasper Star. So many people that you could realistically see going for a title at any given moment. MD definitely has a major target on his back.
that is, I completely agree. And I was about to say, you mentioned Pistolero. Where the hell has he been? I feel like, he had that huge match against Michael Young at Merry Mayhem, and I feel like we haven't seen hide nor hair of him since then.
Just wonder if he's been looking for a way to get Super Pro back. Because
Yeah,
as you all know, he did lose the company at Kumite, and I kind of wonder if that's where he's been, is in Mexico, trying to get his own company back.
it could be that. And also, we've seen before big losses, especially the style of what happened to Pistolero. It can rattle the superstars, and sometimes we've seen them take, sometimes a break for a couple of weeks, sometimes a couple months. I don't know when Pistolero will be back. I've not heard anything. I've not read anything on, the dirt sheets. But what I can say is I'm interested to see what he does when he comes back, because I get the feeling it might not be the same cat that was there going into Merry Mayhem.
I agree. And speaking of people who are back, well, this is not really. This is kind of people who are back in a big way, not in terms of return, but more in terms of a return to form. Catherine Love getting a
Oh,
victory. Oh, pardon
we
me.
I think we skipped one.
I
We
got so
skipped one.
excited. I skipped ahead to the main event, but that is Michael Young versus Chris Princess is of course next, which I've been very excited to talk about.
This was a very interesting match going in because uh, it was a title, which I think maybe confused some people as Chris Princess. He's been on, the past year and a half. Many people have been calling it like the run of his career. And typically the run of your career only lasts a couple months. It's been lasting for over a year now, and I think if this match was for the title, no one would have looked twice at it. But no, non-title match, and Michael Young able to put away Chris Princess, which just sort of begs the question. Obviously, we saw the challenge from Jack Thunderhurt, but I mean, can anyone stop Michael Young right now? Because we want to talk about people on the run of a lifetime. Michael Young has been firing on all cylinders since Endgame 3.
Absolutely, and this was a match to me that it felt like this could have easily been the main event of Endgame 4. I didn't, talking about putting it, on the semi-main of the Vindication Super Show. Not that, of course, the main event didn't deserve it, because that was a tremendously exciting match that I got so excited to talk about. I almost skipped over this one, as silly as that sounds. I mean, this is such a blockbuster match. This is the kind of match that you can sell a whole show on. And I think that is, I mean, this was I don't want to call it one-sided, but Michael Young had a pretty dominating victory over Chris Princess in this match.
I think it was maybe not necessarily dominating, but decisive, to say the least.
Yes.
And I don't know if Chris was going in there necessarily fully on his game, but definitely Michael Young going out there and showing why many people call him the best in the world.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's the best in the world, maybe in the ring. Some people, call him that. I like Michael Young. I don't like what he's been doing this season. I find it a little bit despicable, especially the way he's been treating Colin Piper. Speaking of, of course, what happened after the match, with Colin Piper seemingly joining the Fabulous Furious Freaks. it feels deserved to me. It feels deserved because Michael Young has been what I would call a scumbag this season. I mean, joining up with like Starjammer LLC, like, can you really go any lower than that? That's like, I mean, they win, I guess, but they don't do it in a way that, I want to watch. I mean, I want to watch it because I want to, see what happens, of course, but I don't like how they do things. It makes me pretty upset, and I don't like how Michael Young's been doing things.
Marcus, how do you feel about the match?
You touched on something a minute ago that kind of sparked a thought in my head. You had mentioned, Chris Princess maybe not coming into the match 100%, and that's why we saw it end as abruptly as it did, honestly. But I feel like that wasn't the case. It went just exactly how Princess wanted it to. Princess talked about how he wanted Michael Young to beat him down. He wanted Michael Young to leave him where he couldn't even count the lights at the end of the match. And I know that was Princess. Princess is real good with these mind games. I just wonder if Michael Young didn't continue beating him purely because he knew that's what that was. If he knew it was a mind game and he didn't want to give Princess what he wanted.
I mean, that's very interesting to think about, especially, when it comes to intelligence of CWL superstars. I gotta say, I mean, Chris Princess, he's operating on like a whole other level,
He's playing 4D chess every day.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of that 4D chess, let's talk about what happened after the match with Colin Piper turning on Michael Young. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
I think, I mean, I'm not going to say it was expected because it definitely took me for a shock. But at the same time, I think this was something that, given how Michael Young's been treating Colin as of late, given Colin's downward spiral, we talked about Zavatoa earlier, someone who made people peg at the start of the season to be the next big thing on Vindication. I think a lot of people saw that about Colin Piper. And even worse than Zavatoa, Colin Piper has not won a match this season. And Michael Young recently taking away the lariat, I feel like it was an inevitability where either Michael Young would get, tired of Colin Piper constantly falling short, or Colin Piper would do what we saw this past week. You mentioned earlier, though, that you feel like Colin Piper joined FFF. I'm not entirely sure if that's the case because it didn't. It seemed like even Colin Piper was taken a little bit by surprise by Chris Princess's actions in the ring. I don't know if he was necessarily expecting it.
That was
So
the vibe that I got.
yeah, it's
Which,
definitely an interesting situation to say the very least.
yeah, I mean, look, I'm not saying that he's joining the FFF. I was saying that it seemed like he was joining the FFF.
Yeah, I
I've
get
been
what you
on the
mean.
sheets. I've been getting dirty with the sheets, and I actually had to take a shower before we recorded this because I had a lot of dirt on me. Uh, that was a joke. You can laugh at the
I
Oh,
might.
try not to laugh into the mic while you're talking.
Okay, good. So for all of our listeners out there, it was really good, good funny joke. Uh, anyway, what I meant to say was that I was in those sheets, and a lot of people seem to think that this is what that meant. Chris Princess literally leaving his mark on Colin Piper. In a way that seemed to be a little bit of an initiation, a little bit of an induction, perhaps. I'm not saying that that's what was happening. I'm just saying that I'm sure we will find out more in the weeks to come about what exactly is next for Colin Piper and whether or not it concerns the FFF.
Yeah, it's definitely a very interesting situation, but it's always an interesting situation when Chris is involved. Uh, Hopefully, we get news more on it soon, but it's definitely something to watch in the coming weeks.
And so, our speculation for future title challenges for Michael Young, I think we'll have to wait until next week because we do have to start wrapping things up. Not, of course, that we won't have plenty of time for our main event discussion. So let's move right on to that. We've got Marilyn Benson versus Catherine Love for the Openweight Championship. And Marilyn Benson has been on a hell of a run with that Openweight title. Just putting down contender after contender, turning the Openweight Championship from Uh, I don't want to say a second thought, but it's always been prestigious. It's always been important. But now I feel like it is at the top of everyone's mind as one of the most important championships in all of professional wrestling.
I think I might say it's the best reign we've seen with the title since Harley Quinn had her second reign with the belt, all the way. Funnily enough, uh, back when actually no, not Harley Quinn, Scout McKenzie, when she held the belt for that absurd amount of time back at its near its genesis. Uh, just how long she held the title, the quality of the opponents that she was facing on a monthly basis. Uh, Definitely, in my opinion, one of the top reigns we've seen with the title.
Absolutely. And yeah, and
I absolutely agree with that.
yeah. Uh, and that that was unfortunately use the past tense when you're talking about her title reign, and that is very true because we have a new openweight champion, Catherine Love, winning that title and becoming the first ever women's Triple Crown champion. Very impressive work from both of these competitors. Catherine Love was able to come out on top. I mean, this was a banger with a capital B. It went the distance. Both the competitors fought as hard as I've ever seen anyone fight. This earned its main event spot and more, and we have a new openweight champion. What is next for Catherine Love with that title?
I mean, Marilyn Benson does have her rematch if she elects to use it. But one thing I want to touch on, you said Triple Crown. I think that took a lot of people by surprise because when you look at the White Lotus and its history, you have, the Black Rose, you have Yuri York, you have Calval, and you have Carolyn Hale if you want to get back into it. But Catherine Love has, even with all her accolades, she's always felt like, I don't want to say like a third wheel, but she just feels like she got sort of lost in that sort of shuffle.
Hmm.
And I think this was definitely for a lot of people like, hey, this person's been really good for a really long amount of time.
And she earned her spot. She did the work. She grinded and grinded, and now she finally made it to the top of the mountain. The top of the top of the mountain, with that Triple Crown. And you know, I am very interested to see, if she goes up against Marilyn Benson again, if she can hold on to that title, and if Marilyn Benson, pursues other things, who will be the one to step up? I'm hoping personally that it's someone that Marilyn Benson has already faced in the past and defeated, coming and looking for their second shot.
The every time we look at new contenders, I always look personally. I always look at the recent call ups, and man, there's just there. You got Valkyrie, who could at any point challenge for the open weight if she wanted to. Sorry about that. Had to cough real quick. Um, and that's someone that I would absolutely love to see challenge for the open weight. But as Sophie mentioned, Marilyn Benson have a does have a rematch if she so chooses to take it, and it would be interesting to see what happens in that rematch because the two of them put on one of the greatest matches of the year. It'd be interesting to see if they could top that match if they faced off again.
I think
Yeah,
it's a.
definitely.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, please. I said my piece.
I was just gonna say that I would be very excited to see that go, and I think launching off of this episode, this tremendous Vindication Super Show, we have got so much to look forward to, especially as the wheels begin to turn and we approach verdict, which seems pretty far off, but it's getting closer by the minute. You got to think that a lot of people are going to try to get as much momentum as possible in the meantime to perhaps jump into a title picture or some other kind of important match on that card, of course. That is one of the most interesting pay-per-views of the year, in my opinion. And so, we've got a lot of standouts coming out of this Vindication Super Show. Any final words from you guys before we sign off?
This again, I'm excited. A lot of things where I'm excited to see where they go in the future, and just an all-around really good show.
it was a phenomenal show. I mean, it was definitely one of the best shows that CWL's put out this year. Um, it's been a short year regardless. It feels like it's been a decade at this point.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
the one, go ahead.
no, you go ahead. I was just agreeing with you.
Oh, okay. The one big takeaway that I really had from the show was, damn, Vindication is just stacked. I mean, it was mentioned earlier, but there were two title matches on this card, and every other match, if you disregard Michael Young and Chris Princess, because that could have been a title match, if you look at the three matches that preceded that, every one of them was a good match. And every one of them could have gone either way at any time. I mean, they were all fantastic matches.
Product CWL is coming out with a big show this weekend. We're going to get to see Global Warning, and I am personally very excited.
I mean, yeah, it's one of those things where, on paper, especially following something as big as Mary Mayhem, you maybe expect the next pay-per-view to not be as big of a deal, but I'm looking at this card, and quite honestly, it's one of the better cards I've seen this season. I am quite excited to go over it with you, um, top to bottom.
Absolutely. For me, it'll be very hard to top Mary Mayhem, but this definitely drives a hard. It makes it very difficult for me to, you know, stick to that. So let's see what happens. Let's take a look right now at the pre-show. So starting out, of course, we know that we will have multiple matches on the pre-show, but the only thing we have confirmed is FJA versus Brian. We have seen these two, of course, talking to each other. They've, been getting friendly. FJA has seen Brian. Brian's been struggling. He's been kind of finding it hard to find that fire, that passion that he used to have for professional wrestling, especially after taking that loss to Grook Attack in their best of three series, or their unofficial best of three series. And FJA is, trying to relight that fire.
Now listen, I like FJA. I think he's a decent kid. But big match Brian being here on the show makes me want to watch it even more. Now, I understand where Brian's coming from in the terms of, he sort of feels down on his luck. I mean, if you look at last season, he ended it going into Endgame as champion, as Nemesis World Champion. And then he sort of, I don't want to say floundered because he's done well, but he's maybe not been doing as well. He's not been living up to how he ended the last season currently. And he's been coming short in a lot of his big opportunities. And I think you're right in saying that FJA is trying to sort of find that fire, but sometimes when you're trying to find fire, you end up getting burned.
I see what you did there.
Uh,
So do you think that, maybe Brian will return to his, more dangerous ways against FJA?
I hope so.
Huh.
I'm a big Brian Mark, big fan of the guy, and I hope to see him return to form soon. But I also like FJA pretty good, and I'm kind of torn on who I actually want to see win this match.
I mean, if you look back to Big Match Brian's career trajectory, it was a month ago, last season, going into Verdict, that Brian sort of began to put himself on the map with that big win over TJ Black, securing him the number one contendership spot at Battle Lines. And who knows, maybe it's sort of beginning of the season slump into mid to late season come up for Brian. And I think FJA, he's in the unfortunate spot that TJ Black was just a year ago. And we saw how that went then. Brian could be looking to make one more run for that world title this season. And who knows, maybe a big win over FJA, a convincing win, could get him in the world or even the Twitch title conversation.
So you think FJ is in danger of having his head taken off?
A little bit. Now, we've been talking a lot about Brian, but at the same time, FJA definitely someone who has been on the come up this season, and I mean they're the one that has, I think, maybe the most to prove in this match because FJA, for as good as he is, I feel like he has never really won that big match that puts him in the top guy conversation. I mean, he's definitely one of the best talents on Nemesis, but who has he, besides the one match against Glukatak, who has he really beaten one on one to solidify himself as a top guy? I think if he wins here against big match Brian, FJA would finally win that big match he's looking for.
I agree completely. I mean, he's had a smattering of wins during this season, but nothing that really makes you say this is the guy who should be at the top. This is the guy who's going to main event Endgame. This is the guy who's going to hold that title for a year. He hasn't had that big moment this season yet. And perhaps this could be it. Marcus, do you have any thoughts about this match before we move on to the next or the confirmed matches on the card?
Nope, I do not believe I do. I'm just excited to see the match, to be totally honest. Like I said, I'm a big fan of Brian. I think FJA, I think he has what it takes. And I really don't know. I'm still kind of on the fence on who I want to see win this.
All right. So moving on, we've got the John Spartacus Open Challenge. This is going to be the first match of the main card. This is something that I'm extremely excited to see. So my question for you guys, very obviously, is who the hell is he going to be going up against? This is John Spartacus's first pay-per-view match since his return. Unfortunately, he did lose to Alex Perez on Nemesis. Who is he going to, who's going to go up against him to try to maybe continue what Alex Perez started and kind of beat down on the returning guy? Or is John Spartacus going to be able to recapture some of his momentum with a big win over this mystery person?
I'm excited to see Big Johnny Sparta back. I'm a big fan of the guy. And you talk about, who could we see showing up? Alex Perez, as you've mentioned previously, he's someone who tends to have best of series with people, mainly because he's one of the best wrestlers in the world. I mean, that's all he has to do to sell out wherever he goes, is just have best of series. And I almost wonder if that's what we're going to see, is him show up to fight John Spartacus.
I think, though, one thing to keep in mind, John Spartacus is on, to put it bluntly, quite the losing streak. I mean, he had that major loss at Endgame in the Twitch title match against Frank Quinn, and then he lost to TJ Black, and then we didn't see him for months. And then to come back and lose to Alex Perez, I've got to wonder if maybe the question that is John Spartacus has maybe been answered. And this could be a chance for someone who is on the come up, someone, to give an example like earlier, someone like an FJA who doesn't really have the big established win yet, to maybe finally prove themselves against someone like John Spartacus when he's maybe not at his best.
Absolutely. I mean, so you're saying that, speaking of people, who it could be, why not one of the new Genesis call-ups? This could be Damian Morgan's moment to get that huge win on a big stage. That's
Absolutely.
That's who pops into my head, in terms of a new guy who has an opportunity here to kind of capitalize on John Spartacus, who either has maybe lost a step or, as you said, has been figured out. The spear is a great move, but at the end of the day, it's a guy running at you. And if you can figure out how to get out of the way of it, you got a pretty big leg up on John Spartacus. Not to say that he couldn't overcome those odds, but still.
Well, you want to talk about Genesis guys, Johnny Gemini, who just picked up a major win over someone who could be leaving the show with the world title. We also have Chris Edwards, who just beat both the number one contender and the Twitch champion back to back. These are two guys who are already on roles that could definitely benefit from as big a win as John Spartacus is.
Uh, Absolutely. So my question is kind of who's it going to be? And we've already floated some great names. And then how's it going to end? And we've talked about that too. I mean, I think all that's left is really to see what happens next, and we're going to find out this Sunday. You know, the real answer to both of those questions. And then let's all put in. I would say let's put in a pick for who we think it's going to be, and then we can whoever if someone's right, they can brag about it, and then they can make fun of all the losers. And if we're all wrong, then we can all laugh at each other. My pick is going to be Damian Morgan. That's what I'm staking. I'm putting my hat in the ring on the Big Irishman. What do you guys think?
Marcus, if you'd like to go next.
Sure. I'm gonna stick with what I said previously. I would love to see Sicario be the one to come out, or Alex Perez be the one to come out.
I'm gonna go with maybe a bit of a out of left field one based off of what you guys have been saying. I'm gonna go with Ryan Quinn.
Ooh.
He's someone we've not seen in a little bit on Nemesis. He's someone who's coming off of a big loss at Mary Mayhem, and I mean we've seen him and John Spartacus go to war time and time again. I could see him going for another round with Spartacus, as both of them really do need a big win to sort of get themselves back into the top ranks of the Nemesis division. So Ryan Quinn, the wild card, could be the wild card pick for who faces John Spartacus.
I like that pick a lot. I like that pick too much. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm feeling a little bit nervous about my pick now that you floated that.
Who knows, though? Who knows? Anything is possible in the CWL.
Very true.
True.
Well, let's move on to the next
I'm
match
gonna
with
change my
this.
pick.
Oh, you want to change your pick? What are you changing to?
I'm gonna change my pick. Mini dead.
Mini dead?
Mini
Yep.
dead. All right. We'll write it down. My pick is Damian Morgan. Marcus has Mini dead. And Sophie has Ryan Quinn, which I suspect is going to be the real answer. Okay. Next up, we've got Jake Eagle versus Rodrigo Del Gaiso. This is very interesting to me. So, the American Dreamboats started out this season at an absurdly high level of it seemed like they were getting along. They were reading each other's minds. I talked about how much I love tag team wrestling, and these guys were, they were basically all I was talking about at the beginning of the season. And when they won those titles, I mean, it just made so much sense. They managed to get the win over Pistolero, which was, no easy feat in itself. And they went on an impressive run and then did end up losing to Anarchy Inc. at Mary Mayhem. And since then, it seems like they have just fallen apart. And now, given what we've seen happen on Nemesis, it seems like they've formally fallen apart. Matthew Ramirez signed that contract. It seems like the American Dreamboats are done.
It does seem like that, but at the same time, I mean, it seems like that, but at the same time, everything with especially Matthew Ramirez, you know, not everything that seems for sure is not for sure. Matthew Ramirez is one of the more enigmatic competitors on the Nemesis roster, and who knows what his mindset is at right now. I mean, you could be right. He could very well be distancing himself not just from the American Dreamboat, but from the rest of the Fatal Vices, which we'll talk a little bit about more later on. But it could very well be whoever wins this match is who Matthew Ramirez sides with.
Well, so he already signed. So as I understand it, and I might be wrong, he already signed that contract, right? We saw him, take away that contract on Nemesis, in that pretty. I mean, I was kind of heartbroken because I've always been an American Dreamboats guy. He got that contract, and as Jay Scott explained it, and obviously I don't know if we can really take him at his word, but here's what he said: that contract guaranteed Matthew Ramirez a Twitch title opportunity, but the cost, which both of them seemed very happy to accept was that the American Dreamboats had to be formally disbanded. So we're going into this match with, as I understand it, an officially tag team partner less, Jake Eagle. So that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out right now is like, is this the end for Matthew Ramirez? Is he done? Is he going to go on and have that Twitch title match whenever it ends up happening, or is it possible that, I don't know, there's some loophole or whatever in the contract that he can use to get back on terms with Jake Eagle once again, and does he even want to? I mean, it seems like they've been fighting ever since they lost those titles.
The Fatal Vices, while I am a fan, they terrify me. Absolutely terrify me. And because of that, I have a feeling that if they wanted out of that contract, they could get their way. Whether they do or not, whether they actually do want out of that contract, I'm not to say. I can't say one way or the other. But I could see them forcing their way out of that contract if they so chose to.
Well, I mean, like, pardon me asking, but how would you see that happening? Like what would the circumstances be that allowed for that to happen? How would you just make that happen?
We're talking about a group here. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sophie.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, with the right lawyer, anything is possible. I mean, as well, like I said, this is Matthew Ramirez, one of the most enigmatic competitors in all of CWL. If you remember to Endgame, he traveled through the space-time continuum and went to dimensions that I frankly didn't know existed. I think if he wanted to get out of a legal contract, I don't know who could stop him.
Really good point. I was thinking more Fatal Vices just violently get him out of the contract, but that's definitely an idea that I hadn't had. Was you're right. I mean, Matthew Ramirez traveling through time and space, the man can almost do anything at this point.
Yeah, I would be very interested to see how this turns out. Who do you guys think is going to come out on top in this matchup?
We've been talking a lot about Jake Eagle, Matthew Ramirez, but I've got to give it to Rodrigo. I mean, he has just been firing on all cylinders all season. I mean, he started the season winning a best-of-3 series against the current world champion, Dr. Wrestling Jr. He beat Ryan Quinn at Mary Mayhem, and as much as I like Jake Eagle, and as good of a competitor I think Jake Eagle is, I don't know if he has the momentum that Rodrigo has.
I gotta disagree with you. I've got to give it to Jake Eagle. I mean, it could be the romantic in me just hoping that maybe a win over Rodrigo Delgado will show Matthew Ramirez what he's missing out on, and maybe they'll find some way to get back together as a team. But I'm just that contract scares me because as I feel like it's pretty easy for people to beat Jay Scott in the ring, but I feel like in a courtroom, that's the exact opposite of the arena that you want to be facing him in. So that is kind of my fear. But I do think that Jake Eagle is going to come out on top. What do you think, Marcus?
I got to go with Sophie on this. I gotta get behind Rodrigo. The guy has just, like Sophie already said. I don't want to retread ground, but the guy has already beaten some of the top people on Nemesis, some of the top people in CWL. Period. And he's just on a roll. I mean, the guy has so much momentum going into this. Would I like to see Jake Eagle win? Yes, but I don't think we're going to.
All right, well, we've got the picks down. Do we have any final words before we move on to the next match?
Nope, none that I can think of.
All right, well, let's keep the ball rolling. Let's see. Next up, we have got another little Fatal Vices action. We've got Ken Warlock versus Zach Anderson. And we're seeing a retread with a little bit of a flair of a previous stipulation, of course, when Zach Anderson took on Raymondo. If he lost, he would have to join the Fatal Vices. We're seeing that once again, only this time if Zach Anderson wins, Ken Warlock has to leave CWL for good. This is something that I think we're going to spend a little bit of time on because this is just so interesting. I mean, what would a Fatal Vices without Ken Warlock look like?
I mean, we might as well be grilling on the moon because the stakes are high. I mean, Ken Warlock, Ken Warlock, is been one of the standout competitors of this season, and I think it's because he has led the Fatal Vices, and they have been running roughshod on Nemesis. However, he is someone, like we've mentioned before, like FJA, who I feel is missing that one big win. And I think tonight is put up or shut up for Ken Warlock. I mean, Zach Anderson, we've seen prove himself on a big stage when he beat Raymondo at Merry Mayhem. So now I'm kind of thinking we've seen Zach Anderson prove himself. It's time for Warlock to do so.
I completely agree. Marcus, what are your thoughts on this?
You know, I couldn't imagine Warlock leaving, but at the same time, Zach Anderson does have that big win, does have that momentum. Ken Warlock, he gets wins here and there, but he's not gotten that one that kind of cements him as a top guy yet. And this could be that if he were to win. But I don't know that he can. Much like Rodrigo, I feel like Zach Anderson is kind of on a roll right now, and I think he kind of has that momentum on his side.
I agree completely. I mean, if I'm going to be honest, actually, I'm going to go the other way on it. I think that Ken Warlock is actually going to win. I mean, I think it's been, we've seen it before. He's been on the cusp of a big victory, and I think this is going to be the thing that tips him over the line. I totally agree Zach Anderson has been on a roll, but I think that, I think it's just going to end up a little bit different this time. I think this match is a real coin toss, and I think the coin toss is going to land in favor of Ken Warlock.
I think another thing to keep in mind is I could see Zach Anderson possibly getting overconfident in terms of, like I said, he's done this before. He has walked this walk against Raimondo. He could be coming in here with overconfidence, and Ken Warlock thrives off of overconfidence. If you look to Banff, he beat Chris Princess in a match where many people considered Ken Warlock the underdog. I think if Zach Anderson comes in, overconfident, Ken Warlock is going to kick his head off.
And that is, of course, that final sin kick. I mean, it's just so deadly. It was not able to put down Grog Attack, but I mean, nothing really can. But it could very well do the job against Zach Anderson.
I had another thought. Anderson wants to join the Fatal Vice. What if we get like a finger poke of doom type situation, and Zach Anderson just lays down for Warlock?
I've thought about that, but at the same time, it why not do that at I understand there's maybe a bit more personal at Merry Mayhem, but he had the option of joining Fatal Vices.
I just have such a hard time seeing any of these competitors kind of allowing themselves to take a loss, especially since, some wrestling companies don't really see this as strongly, but in CWL, wins and losses mean so much, especially in regards to making your way up to a championship. Zach Anderson, he may, want to join the Fatal Vices, and, Ken Warlock definitely wants him in the Fatal Vices, but neither of these men are going to relinquish an opportunity to capture a championship at some point in the future, especially, even if he does join the Fatal Vices. And if Ken Warlock wants him to go after that, Twitch championship, for example, he's not going to want one of his disciples to have that unnecessary loss on his resume, I think.
No, I can definitely see where you guys are coming from with that. But at the same time, we are talking about a cult. We are talking about a cult leader. They may not call themselves that, but it's very obvious that's what they are. I've seen stranger things happen, especially when it comes to charismatic leaders of cults.
Very true and very interesting. And so, I have to admit, I have been very excited for this match, but this whole time I have just been uh, basically like shaking with excitement at the next match we've got, which for me is without a doubt the match that I am most looking forward to. I've said it before. I love tag team wrestling, and this match is for one of the most prestigious tag team titles in this whole business, the CWL Tag Team Championships. So we have got Anarchy Inc. going in as the reigning champions against a new upstart team, the Sons of Fenrir. Both of these teams are pretty new. They've both formed this season. But my question is,
Yeah,
who
but
will score that victory? And here's an interesting wrinkle. Of course, this is a vindication team in the form of the Sons of Fenrir versus a nemesis team for Anarchy Inc. And as we've been talking about, we're all looking ahead to battle lines. Could this be kind of a shot across the bow of either brand, depending on who wins?
well, I think one thing to touch on, you said these are two new teams, and while that is true, this is definitely not new ground for Jacob Nitro and William Black. These two have some big history from last season that they're sort of digging up here. And while, like I said, it's new teams, there's definitely some old business being brought up. And I've got to be honest, I'm gonna go with Anarchy Inc. here to make a early prediction, just because as good as Sons of Fenrir are, and they are very good, Anarchy Inc. had to battle through so much to get the tag titles, and they had to work so hard to get the tag titles and get on the same page that I don't see them losing so quickly.
I
No,
am. Oh, so go ahead, Marcus.
I was just gonna say I agree. I don't see them losing so quickly. But my I do also I do also like to look at the individual competitors, and William Black is someone who has, he's been to the top of the mountain, especially in tag team wrestling. He was part of one of the most dominant stables in the CWL as the Truthless Heroes. One of the most dominant tag teams. He may not have been on the team, but he was still part of that stable. And while I do give the edge to Anarchy Inc., I think Sons of Fenrir are going to do more than we expect.
I have to admit, I hate to play devil's advocate again, but I have to give this one to Sons of Fenrir. And I gotta admit, my last two calls have been, especially my Jake Eagle one, was really based on how I feel about the match. But I'm about to back this up with some pretty serious data. You ready for this? You ready for me to hit you with these facts?
Roll,
Okay.
Mattis.
All right, here we go. Anarchy Inc., you said they had to get through a lot. I don't know that that's necessarily true, okay? These are guys who lost to Starjammer LLC in their debut match, and then pretty soon after were challenging the American Dreamboats at Merry Mayhem. I think the American Dreamboats accepted that challenge because they thought it was going to be an easy win, but Anarchy Inc. was able to get that upset victory. But then when you look at the other side, Sons of Fenrir have basically been unstoppable on Vindication. I think that, I don't know if they've even lost a single match, as a tag team or as singles competitors since they started supporting each other. I just think that when you look at the pure win-loss records, it seems like such an easy call for Sons of Fenrir. I think they're going to continue their streak of domination and score a victory with those tag team titles. And I think that Anarchy Inc., I think they still have a while to go before they really find who they are as a tag team. I think they've yet to find a concrete strategy. They have, they've keeled over to teams before, relatively untested teams. And I think this is a team who, I mean, even though they're pretty new, have really been strengthened in the fire of the gauntlet that they've undergone with their matches against the FFF. So because of those things, that is why I am predicting a Sons of Fenrir victory.
Those are all really good points.
Absolutely. I think this is one that there's a lot of matches on this card, but I think this is also one that could go either way.
I think I am more confident than any other match on this whole card. I'm giving this one to Sons of Fender, and I'm giving it to them in a big way. I will be surprised if Anarchy Inc. is able even to make a tag, because I think that Sons of Fender have won this match before it's even begun. I think they have figured out Anarchy Inc. And I think that this match is... I think we're going to see new champions by the end of the night, and I think it's, quite frankly, it's a question that's already been answered.
Well, I won't dispute that.
Yeah, and we go from one title match that's hotly contested to another.
Excuse me, I'm in charge of the transitions around here, Sophie.
Yeah, well, listen, I just want to be involved.
Okay, well, I'll let you take this one. Go for it.
Okay, well, we've got TJ Black versus Drake Harrison coming up, and while the main crux behind this match is a lot of recent issues of pride, TJ Black feeling like he's not getting his due, and that Drake Harrison maybe stole some of his spotlight at Mary Mayhem. These two, for those of you who have been following TJ Black's career, these two used to be tag team partners. These two were on opposite sides of last season's Nemesis Civil War at the start of the season. These two have history. These two, this is something that is very personal, maybe more so than either of them are letting on. And I've got to be honest, you want to talk about coin flip. If you had asked me coming out of Mary Mayhem, hey, these two are going one-on-one, who wins? I would say TJ Black because of the role he's been on. But given the fact that both these two recently lost to Chris Edwards, I think Drake Harrison's a bit better at not letting a loss get to him. So, I don't know.
I kind of got to agree there. Drake Harrison definitely is Teflon at this point. He's someone who always bounces back from his losses. And while TJ Black is a phenomenal competitor, he's someone who doesn't necessarily bounce back from his losses. He's someone who kind of carries that weight a little longer than necessary.
I mean, I agree, and I just think the question is, will TJ be able to get that sleeper hold in? I mean, it's been so decisive in all of his matches since he's started using it. Is this going to be, is it going to mark the end of Drake Harrison's title aspirations? Or is it going to be the thing that, is this going to be the thing that, is this going to be the time? Is this going to be the challenger? Someone who knows TJ Black so well, is he going to be the one to break that sleeper hold?
I think... Oh, I'll let you continue, Marcus.
I was just going to say, you ever tried choking out a dinosaur? I haven't, but I can't imagine it being easy.
Well, I guess that's another thing that we're going to have to think about. Are we seeing Rex or are we seeing Drake in this match? I got to admit, I don't really know all of the details about Drake's other identity or how that really works, but when he gets angry, he seems to get pretty angry. So
I don't know the details, but it's cool as shit.
So who are you guys calling for this one?
I'm definitely on Drake Harrison's side on this one.
I am actually... I don't know if I have the confidence to make a call for this one, so I'm going to leave it down to you guys.
I'm not sure. I think I cut out there for a second, so I have some technical issues. But I think Drake Harrison, if anyone is going to break out of that sleeper, it's going to be Drake. I mean, we saw how much it took to put him down at Mary Mayhem. I think it might not be as simple as sleeper hold and win as TJ Black might seem.
All right, well, you know what? I'm going to go along with you guys on this one. You swayed me. I'm going to jump on the Drake Harrison boat as well. So, Drake Harrison from all three of us.
I'm going to be real mad if he loses now. We're all going to look dumb.
Oh, we are gonna. I mean, look, we're not, professional wrestling journalists. We're just a couple of excited fans. So, moving on next, we have got the Nemesis Women's Championship. Quinn Edwards trying to defend against Jada King. And I think, just by the way I introed that, I think you guys can already tell which way I'm leaning on this. But I'm going to let you guys get the first word in.
Jada King, man, there aren't too many people who have such an explosive debut. You see it here and there, but you don't see it as often as you might think. Jada King is one of those people. Everyone she's faced, I've thought, man, she's not going to win this, and then she does. So I gotta go with Jada King in this match. I mean, Quinn Edwards is phenomenal. I'm a big Quinn Edwards fan. I've been a fan of Quinn Edwards since her days in Wildfire. But I gotta go with Jada King on.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna hop in here and give my thoughts. Quinn Edwards has been on a roll. She unseated the champion. She unseated the seemingly unstoppable Cassie Clark. But Jada King, I mean, she's just so powerful. She's pure power. And I'm surprised that Marcus, that you weren't all in on Jada King, considering I know you have a proclivity for the beef. And Jada King has that in spades. And I just think that as good as Quinn Edwards is, she is a little outclassed by the Genesis upstart.
Oh no, I'm all in on Jada King.
Sophie, what are your thoughts?
I believe Sophie might be having some mic issues at the moment.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
I believe Quinn Edwards, could carry the title for a while. I'd like to see her do that, but Jada King, man. I mean, she's so good right now. She is on fire, and I don't see Quinn being able to compete against it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you look in the dictionary right now and you look up momentum, it's a picture of Jada King. She has just been steamrolling over people, and surprisingly, that Queen of Genesis title eluded her that entire time that she was on the green brand. You gotta think that she's hankering for a little bit of gold around her waist.
That's definitely what I see happening. I mean, she's proven that she's a hungry athlete just in the way that she wrestles. You gotta think that she will do anything to win this match.
I completely agree. Let us jump on to the next match. Here's something that we have been discussing this not on the podcast, but definitely off of it. Valkyrie with Selena Adams versus Cassidy Clark, who will be, of course, accompanied by her husband Alex. I am curious. That is the word that I have to use about the relationship between Valkyrie and Selena Adams. Selena Adams is, of course, got her hands firmly wrapped around that Gold in the Bank briefcase. And if we know one thing about Valkyrie, it is that she is looking at some kind of gold, be it the Nemesis Women's Championship or that Openweight Championship. And things have not been going well between Valkyrie and Selena, of course. Selena was getting the absolute, I don't know if we want to swear on the podcast, but she was getting the crap kicked out of her by Cassie Clark backstage. And Valkyrie decided to finish up her match. She took her time before coming to the aid of her friend, and she got a chair in the face for her troubles. So the beef between all three of these people is very apparent. And you got to think that, just by the layout of the match with the difficulties that Valkyrie and Selena have been having, Cassie Clark is, of course, joined by her husband, Alex. You got to think that maybe Cassie Clark will have the edge, especially considering that she has a little bit more chemistry with the person that'll be accompanying her to ringside.
I mean, I think they're always going to have more chemistry. I mean, there are very few bonds stronger than that of matrimony. And, I mean, listen, I don't want to make backstage assumptions, but Selena and Valkyrie have known each other for, a month? I doubt they are that close compared to Alex and Cassidy.
Yeah, I mean, what were your thoughts on the beatdown that we saw on Nemesis?
I mean, I think it was a smart tactic by Cassidy Clark. I mean, attack where your enemy is not, am I right? I mean, she knows if she's going to go and do something that Valkyrie might expect, which is attack her in the ring, then obviously Valkyrie might be able to plan for that. But she went after Selena because Selena was looking for her. And I think Selena got in her own head, wound up on the wrong part of the locker room, and Cassidy was able to use that to her advantage. And Valkyrie didn't really know what to do.
Oh, absolutely. I
You know,
mean,
I
I don't
just
want to
want
call
to
this.
mention.
Oh, pardon me, Marcus. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, um, this the situation with Selena being attacked backstage and Valkyrie finishing her match. I can see where that may cause strife between Selena and Valkyrie, but I kind of feel like Selena would do the same thing. They're both competitors. You would think that they would both be kind of on the same page there when it comes to continuing and finishing a match as opposed to just leaving.
And as you know, we've talked about it before on this very podcast. As a CWL competitor, it's so important to keep track of those wins and losses. So you understand why Valkyrie was hesitant to abandon the match, but at the same time, this is someone, she made a deal with Selena Adams. She made a deal that she was going to have her back, and she has had a hard time living up to her end of the bargain when Selena Adams has definitely, been holding up hers, surprisingly, as the Gold in the Bank holder. So if she's able to do that, I think the Valkyrie should be repaying the favor. And I think that, honestly, as much as I hate to say it because I don't
I
like the way that she's been going about it, I think that Cassidy Clark deserves a win in this match.
I think that I'm gonna agree with you in that Cassie Clark is going to pick up a win. Not because, and this is a bold prediction on my part, but not because I think that Adams isn't, they aren't going to mesh well. I think Adams is going to be a bit too busy because I had a bit of mic issue, so I wasn't able to say it. But I think Adams is intending on walking out of Global Warning as the Nemesis Women's Champion. Call it
That
a big shot out of left field, but I think given the competitors involved, and it would definitely be a bit of a middle finger to both Cassie Clark and Valkyrie. That while they were squabbling and Adams has sort of been this third wheel that keeps getting beaten down, she's the one that's leaving with the gold.
That is very interesting. So do you think that as she accompanies Valkyrie down to the ring, she's gonna have that gold slung over her shoulder?
Or maybe she won't even go down. I mean, like I said, she could get the title and then dip. She could leave.
I mean, I
Uh,
that's a very big possibility, but in that case, you got to think that she would have a big target painted on her back that Valkyrie would be looking to cash in on, or not cash in on literally, but cash in on figuratively.
yeah. But I'm predicting for this match at least a Cassie Clark victory.
All right, well let's put that down on the record books. I am also in the camp of Cassidy Clark. Marcus, where are you landing on this?
I'm gonna go with Valkyrie.
All
I'm
right.
a fan of Cassidy Clark, but I think Valkyrie's got it.
Well, moving on to the final match of the night, we've got the main event. Dr. Wrestling Jr. going in as the Nemesis Heavyweight Champion versus Connor Gates. I have no idea how this one's going to go, but I mean, these two are two tremendously exciting wrestlers to watch, and I have no doubt that we are going to get a match of the year candidate right here.
Yep, that's my thought exactly. Dr. Wrestling Jr. constantly puts out, 5-star matches. Connor Gates constantly puts out 5-star matches. But I think Doc is gonna come away with it. And my reason behind that is Connor Gates is, while he's one of the best wrestlers on Nemesis, he's someone who's lost a lot of blood lately. You look back at Endgame, you look at the Banff tournament. This is someone who has taken a beating, and I don't know that he's at 100%.
Yeah, I get that.
I I hear what you're saying, Marcus, but there's something to be said about the drive of Connor Gates. And
Oh,
while I am
absolutely.
sure Dr. Wrestling Jr. wants to keep his title, I think Connor Gates needs to win it this Sunday. And the reason I say needs is because Connor Gates, for the longest time, was considered although he was the founder, he was maybe considered the least successful member of the Truthless Hero. I mean, You look at William Black, who's considered, he's former multi-time Twitch champ, he's former tag champ, considered one of the best wrestlers in the game right now. You see Alex Graves, OG CWL, the first ever tag team champion. He was a Twitch champion. He's done all these things. You've got Michael Young, current world champion, and then there's Connor Gates, where it seems every time he gets a little bit of something, it's taken away like that. And especially given the past couple months, the past month he's had, make it to the final two of that 8-man match for the world title, coming up short. Make it to the final two, or final three, I don't remember which one, but make it to the finals of Banff, coming up short. This time, there's no multi-person. There's no members of the Truthless Heroes here. It's just him and one other person across the ring. We've mentioned it before about put up or shut up, but for Connor Gates, this might very well be his last chance at a major title in CWL. He needs to capitalize it.
I mean, that is extremely insightful discussion, especially considering, coming up short, seems to be the story of Connor Gates' life. It seems that every opportunity he's had for a major championship, I don't want to say he's fumbled it, but he hasn't been able to fully capitalize on it. And this might be the time that, his final shot, his last opportunity, his, last hurrah. I don't know how you want to say it, but either way, I think he's got to get this win.
I started out definitely Team Doc on this, but I think you've kind of convinced me. I think Connor Gates might actually do it, because you're right. He is someone who he always kind of comes up short, but he's always there in that title scene, and this very well may be that chance he gets to kind of elevate himself, and that's kind of been the story of everybody in season 4 of CWL. Is you're seeing a lot of people who've stumbled here and there, starting to kind of get the grasp on everything and kind of step up, and that might be what Connor Gates does at global warming. I can't say the word. Global warning.
I'm gonna say this, and this is my last point I'll make on the matter. I think if Connor Gates does not win against Dr. Wrestling Jr. at Global Warning, I don't know if Connor Gates will ever be a world champion. And that's not saying that this match is going to be easy. But we saw him have one of his best runs yet leading up to Mary Mayhem. We've seen him come so close to solidifying himself as a solidified singles threat. If he strikes out for the third time, he struck out at Mary Mayhem, he struck out at Banff, he's up to the plate once more. But I think if he doesn't win this Sunday, I don't know that his time will ever come.
And
so you see this kind of as a last waltz, a last ditch effort to finally make that name.
What I'm saying is, if now isn't the time, when is?
I agree. I mean, I agree completely. And I think that is such a great way to kind of cap off this preview. And we will reconvene next week to kind of talk about what went down at Global Warning, how all of our predictions went or perhaps didn't go, and what really ended up happening, and just how fantastic a match, or how fantastic a show this turned out being. And so with all that being said, I think it's time for us to sign off. Do you guys have any last words that you want to say, or maybe say goodbye to our loyal listeners for our second ever episode?
No, I don't think I have anything to say other than thanks for watching, and be sure to tune into Global Warning, and also do that as a birthday gift for me.
All right, Marcus?
Definitely with Sophie there. Go ahead and tune into the show.
I will certainly be tuning in. Have a great weekend. Make sure to watch Global Warning. I did the same thing as you just did, Marcus. And then make sure to take a listen to us next week, as we're going to talk about everything that went down. And have a great weekend, everybody.